Thank you for tuning in to another episode of My Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the chance where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And today I've got with me Matt Pratten. Hello, Matt. How are you doing, mate?
Hey, Joe. Thanks for having me on. Great to meet you, mate.
Yeah, good. And the accent gives it away, really. You're not originally from the UK, are you? Although there might be a tenuous link to the UK, though.
Yes. So just to avoid any doubt, I'll get rid of that just by saying g'day.
And I wonder where that's from.
I get some people mixing it up every now and again. The cautious people who are sort of cautious, but they can't really tell. They'll sort of say, "Oh, are you from South Africa?" And that I sort of give the weird look at that one. But then there's people who turn around and say, "Oh, what part of New Zealand are you from?" And that's like, "Hey, no, I come from."
And then you could reply, "How long have you been a linguistic specialist then?"
Oh, it's actually it's the opposite in Australia. Like growing up, because as you alluded to before, mum and dad migrated from the UK. They were 10-pound poms, and of course, growing up with two parents from who grew up in Manchester in Australia, I'd go to school and everyone would swear I'm English. Yeah, all my teachers would ask my parents at parent-teacher nights, "Oh, when did Matt come over from England?" And maybe a little later on, it's been a lifelong identity crisis.
Well, that's interesting, because when I joined the army in the Royal Engineers, like, a lot of the guys were from the south, and I got the nickname Scouse, right? And if you put me in the middle of a bunch of Scousers or people from Liverpool, I sound nothing like them. The fact is, though, down in London, I do, if that makes sense. So just the same as you've probably got different dialects in Australia, haven't you? And you can tell.
Funnily enough, no.
Haven't you?
No, not. Well, I've never noticed. It's pretty uniform across the country.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, I've got cousins over in Australia, and Australia is so vast. I would have thought that there would have been dialect changes, but all right, no. Okay, well, let's just dive straight in, because we've already covered a little bit about where you're from. And just tell me about your childhood, and I found it interesting, the little story you gave about exactly where in Australia you are. So tell me about that, please.
Okay, so as alluded to before, I grew up in mum and dad migrated from Manchester to Australia in the 70s. I grew up in Sydney, and a place in an area in South Sydney called the Sutherland Shire. It's commonly known, courtesy of the Lord of the Rings. It's now just known as the Shire, and anyone who's grown up in the Shire and travels outside of it often gets a nickname like Hobbit or or Frodo. I've had said to me once or twice. Especially in the army, or Hobbit, but there would be Frodo, because I was a Hobbit who left the Shire.
So thank you for that. It makes me chuckle. That. So what was going on in your childhood? I mean, £10 poms. That's interesting because we got a series on in the UK, which you know about anyway, because you're living in the UK now.
Yeah.
Um, and how did that position you with your peer group, with the children? Were you ostracized, or was it okay, or what?
No, it was never really never really. There'd be the odd there would be the odd little jab, especially when it came to, of course, being the son of English migrants, growing up on a healthy diet of football. Well, in Australia it's called soccer, but I would sort of say I would turn around and say no, it's football, and everyone sort of
Yeah.
roll their eyes and go, oh, the English kid. So I would get that every now and again. There'd be people that would turn around and try and sort of do their own version of do an attempt at an English accent and fail miserably. Uh, no, so the bit yeah, I'd get the probably the most common one would be, oh Matt, do you want a cup of tea and a bicky? I think there was a line I don't think I ever used it. It was one like, oh, cup of tea and a bicky. You're the one who needs food, Tubby.
All right, okay, nice, good,
So there would be times where I'd throw it back right at them.
good,
And there's actually the odd occasion where it actually helped out.
good. In what way?
So I've got to sort of fast forward to high school on
Mm,
this one.
yeah,
So throughout high school, I'll so basically in Australia I won the life lottery. I had the ideal sort of childhood upbringing, the sort of childhood that every parent wants to give their kid.
Mark.
And in high school, I studied and studied and studied. And one thing I took a real interest in was languages. The only one at school on offer at the time was Italian, and I got to do a short study trip to Italy with a group of kids from my school and my Italian teacher. And we're at this, we're trying to get. I can't. I think it was like sort of like a gardens sort of site. I can't remember the name of the place, like statues everywhere, whatnot. And ticket prices, of course, had to pay admission to get in. And my teacher turned around and remarked, "Well, if the ticket prices are this much, but there are certain schools that get a really big discount." And then my teacher realizes, oh wait, there's a few English schools on here where they get discounts. So she turns to me and goes, Matt, can you help us out? So I've walked up and thought, okay, how am I going to do this? And I remembered, okay, I remember what school my dad went to. So I walk up and in possibly the most almost caricature accent possible, going, hi, yeah, hi. Uh, Myself, a bunch of kids here from Openshaw Technical High School, would like to go in. How much are the prices? I know I can't believe it actually worked.
But so what age were you?
I was 17 when that one
Right, so
happened.
at the age of 17, just below the age where you can go to prison as an adult, your teacher was encouraging you to defraud the Italians. Right, okay. So that could
Yep.
have been called the Italian job, couldn't it? Really?
Oh yes. And funnily enough, it's yeah. On that trip, not speaking Italian sort of got me places. Back in Australia, speaking understanding Italian did actually lead to some pretty interesting scenarios.
So what at this time, right? So you've got what you class as a perfect childhood, and I'm sure there were difficulties and challenges at certain times, especially when you were getting picked on. And what I got from the conversations we've had previously is you seem to just have a blasé attitude, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that if someone gives you a bit of grief, you just push through it and leave it and forget about it pretty quickly.
Yes, although that is something I have had to learn a lot. In
Yeah,
fact, I would put that down to military service,
yeah.
instilling that. I mean, before, in fact, growing up, I did have a short period. I mean, now it's a very short period looking back on it, but at the time
Mm.
it was 2 years worth. I did have that phase at school where I was bullied a lot.
Right, okay.
Um, yeah, and it was just on the basis that and to an extent to today, there are times where I still wear my heart on my sleeve.
Right,
So
okay.
I was an easy target, although Um, and I suppose this is probably the first indicator of what drew me to the army was that it stopped when I turned around and grabbed one of the bullies and got into a fight.
Yeah.
Um, I I was the one that ended up with the bloody nose, but the bullying stopped after that.
Y- Well, that's great, and it takes a lot to do that. So, congratulations on that. And while, of course, we're not condoning violence, the thing is, old school. I remember a similar situation. I won't go into it too graphically, but these twins were picking on me, and they were yeah, they were really picking on me, and they got me outside school, and I just whacked one of them. And you know what? They never touched me again. And it wasn't because they couldn't give me a good hiding. It's just because they could have done. It's just that I wasn't an easy target anymore.
Yep. And in fact, I wish probably one regret I have about childhood is I didn't nag my parents enough to get into martial arts earlier.
Right.
One thing I got to fast forward a little bit again, but I got into martial arts halfway through my army career, and that really, in fact, that's probably where the sort of blasé attitude to any kind of sort of jab or anything like that, pardon the pun,
Yeah.
um, comes from because I mean nothing calms you down like if you if you are prone to having you wearing your heart on your sleeve and being high strung, nothing seems to really calm you down like a good couple of smacks to the face.
Yeah. Everyone's got a plan till you get punched in the face, as
Exactly.
Mike Tyson said.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this is one of the things that I work on when I'm chatting to veterans about PTSD. People often live in the past permanently, and I'm not saying that nothing goes on in the past that's bad. I'm not saying that. It's just that the way you deal with it now is as an adult, right? And it's difficult to remember. Like I cannot relive my age as a 7 year old because I'm not. I'm a lot older now. I mean, flipping heck, I'm 55 years older than that. So now I live as a 62-year-old. So even when I'm looking back to my life at 7 or before, I'll never have that again. That's why I mentioned the word blasé attitude, because that's how it comes across now. If I'd have sat down with you and chatted to you at that time you were being bullied, you would have been a totally
uh,
different person.
Yeah, at the time, yeah, I thought the world was ending, and the other times as well after other times as well after that, like at various stages, whether it was a case of it or not, where it did feel like the world was ending. Um, I think probably, I mean, I suppose when it comes to sort of any conversations about PTSD, uh
Yeah,
my knowledge is, I would say my knowledge is, I'll be the first to say it's quite limited, but the limited amount I do know, what has helped me sort of overcome any sort of challenge really, is being able to find a point, an event or series of events where you can sort of back at those and go, yep, that happened, but that chapter is closed now. It's
yeah,
over.
yeah,
There's a you're able to you're able to sort of go, you're able to sort of tell yourself, yeah, that happened, it sucked, I've found a way to end it.
yeah. And I say to my sons, because actually, funnily enough, I did martial arts when I was young, and I encourage my sons to do it, and they do jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai.
Nice.
Oh, and
Nice.
I'm not messing about with them. I mean,
Yep.
I did my bit, but jiu-jitsu is like,
Oh, that you know what that is, I've my younger sister as a boy, and I've been trying to sort of plant the idea of get him into
yeah,
martial arts, Muay
yeah,
Thai or Jiu-Jitsu.
yeah,
And I would joke with friends that if the day ever comes where I'm married and have kids, well, they're all doing martial arts. The difference being is the order. For boys, it's going to be Muay Thai first,
yeah,
then Jiu-Jitsu to get the aggression out of them, and give them a sense of humility, but a sense of confidence, but then learn how to, I suppose, I mean, for boys, Muay Thai is like playing drafts.
yeah,
Jiu-Jitsu is chess,
yeah, yeah,
is
yeah,
for them.
yeah.
And if
That's a
I,
good. Yeah, that's a good description. That's a good metaphor. That, yeah, yeah.
For if I have a daughter, she's learning jujitsu first, then Muay Thai. So it's
Yeah.
a great way. It's if there's, I mean, jujitsu for what I've noticed with, say, for girls, it's excellent to teach emotional control. There is
Mm,
no, I have not come across anything else that will teach you emotional control like jujitsu. Um, well, Muay Thai does, but it's nowhere near as efficient.
no.
Uh, and it'd be a case of, teach the daughter's getting jujitsu lessons first, then Muay Thai, so that if she's getting picked on before the older brother turns up, she can tear him apart.
Wow, and I'm glad you gave me that simile there with chess and drafts because after my recent incident with my neck, I think when I want to do jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, I'll just have a game of chess or drafts because I don't fancy getting in the ring with my sons. Um, so, so that's brilliant. Thank you very much for that. So, what was it? So you're 17, you've been to Italy and committed fraud with with the Italians. And when is it that you come back and you think, I want to join the mercy because I want to escape the Italians, or what was it?
It was well, the interest in the military. The desire to join the army actually occurred several years beforehand, back to when I was about 15.
Right.
Well, actually, even again, I got to go back probably even further in terms of, just as I was saying before, I had the ideal childhood,
Yeah.
and as a kid, mum and dad wanted to make sure my sister and I knew our extended family, so we'd go to England, come back, come here, come to England quite a lot, meet grandma, granddad, aunts, uncles,
Yeah.
and there'd be trips to countries in between. And so, like during that time, I got a very good look at what other places in the world are like. And at a very young age, I realized that I was a very lucky boy to be born and raised in Australia. I had won the life lottery,
Yeah.
and so that and over time that developed into basically it's almost stereotypical. It developed into patriotism,
Good.
is probably the first aspect. And then at high school, when I was about 15, I started to sort of have a really good serious think about what do I want to do when I leave school, whether I leave at 15 or if I continue want to do my HSC, or I think it's like A levels. I think it's over here.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I figured I want to do something where I want to do something that requires brawn and brains. Because I had a look at sort of professions like sort of accounting, etc. Did not want to be just in an office. Oh, excuse me,
Okay.
pardon me. Did not want to be in an office or 9 to 5. Looked at considered trades though, and I am absolutely awful at working with my hands. I am terrible at it. But if you need something broken, I'm your guy.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, started looking around, and just out of curiosity, I was like heard about an open day at Australian Defence Force Academy. Went to that with a few friends. I took a look at the place and I loved it. I thought, yeah, this is a line of, a line of work where it's physical and it's mental. This is what I'm looking for, and went back home after that and decided, yep, that's what I'm gonna do, and just dedicated the rest of my schooling to wanting to join the army. I'm in, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed to admit it now, but I wanted to become an infantry officer.
Right.
Um,
Okay. So
uh,
you found
oh,
your calling really,
yes. Spoiler alert, the infantry officer plan did not come to fruition.
which we'll find out about a little bit later in
Yep,
a while. And
yep.
so when did you sign on the dotted line for adult service, and what happens? Because the Australian Army, I'm interested. I mean, and now I know that we're serving King and Country. At the time, it would have been we were serving Queen and Country, and certainly in my time between 81 and 2001. The latter part being in the Territorial Army. But how did the Australian Army view their relationship with the Crown, i.e.,
Uh, yeah, well, still, it's still very, I mean, despite what anyone back in Australia will say about any kind of effort for republicanism, Australia is part of the monarchy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and quite frankly, I sincerely hope that never ever
yeah.
changes.
Good.
And of course, we have the Union flag on our flag to sort of symbolise
Yeah.
British roots. And also when it comes to enlisting or signing up, so when I ended up in enlisting, and one of the what was a till still to this day I still remember it, and it gives sort of when you have that swearing in, that's you look back on that and it'll sort of you'll get the chill. And I
Yeah, no,
remember,
it is
you
something,
know,
isn't it?
yeah, I remember standing, having a row of Australian flags behind me, raising my right hand, and it was I had the option of either swearing to God or swearing to the Queen. I chose the Queen,
Right.
and I you know I I like I said, chills.
Good. Oh, well, yeah, well, thank you for your service. So what, after you swore the oath, what was going on in your mind and where were you going? What was your
Uh,
training like? Because I know I know some of my mates have gone over to the Australian Army and the Canadian Army and various armies, and they find it uh, similar. And I'd just like to find your take on it.
Yeah, well, I've bumped into a few guys who have transferred over from the British Army, and based on what they've learned, I learned from them. Australian Army. Sorry for all the folks back home. I apologise, but it's a fact. British Army training, especially recruit training, does sound a lot tougher. I had so when I enlisted, so I'll jump forward a few steps here. So plan to get into ADFA and officer training. That went completely kaput. That after that, tried other things. Just absolutely hated it all. Had another crack at joining up. The recruiting officer said, "Look, if you try that avenue again, you've got a snowball's chance in hell. How about trying the Army Reserve and enlist as a soldier?" So an Army Reserve is TA.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yep, and got into sort of enlisted into the Army Reserve and getting to basic training at Kapuka, the recruit training center there. In my case, it was stereotypical being a city kid, a city boy from with a very good upbringing. Didn't want for anything, and for me especially, what a culture shock. The get it as soon as I got off, you can watch Full Metal Jacket as many times as you like, but nothing prepares you for that culture shock of all of a sudden you get off that bus and that corporal who's been on that bus with you all of a sudden becomes just basically becomes the wrath of God incarnate.
So it's pretty similar. That's where we do have similarities because that corporal becomes your mother and
Yep.
father and everything. Yeah.
And in fact, this is and in my case, it was middle of the night, so we turned up late. So all the
Oh,
training
nice
staff,
start.
they're enough. They were in just the best of moods, and then, I meet my section commander almost a few moments after that, and is this 6 foot plus absolute brick
Yeah, you can
you
say it.
know,
Yeah, yeah.
brick, 6 foot plus brick shithouse who's who's gone through who smells like I could smell he'd gone through an entire pack of cigarettes, and then I find out he's armored corps, and I'm left there wondering, wait a minute, this guy's in armored corps. He looks like he could eat a tank.
He is a
How does he
tank.
fit in one?
Yeah.
So and of course 6 weeks of that, I mean, I could have for the first 2 weeks. There's like that initial period where it's just everybody is just you are the corporals and the sergeants treat everyone like they're scum of the earth,
Yeah.
and I could have I came pretty close to being I came pretty close to quitting. Um, fortunately, I managed to not to not make that decision. And then after about 2 weeks, just that's when everything starts to fall in place, everything starts to make sense, and I loved it after that.
So, what was the most memorable nightmare, if that
Oh
makes
boy.
sense? The most
Um,
memorable nightmare in that training session
oh
or the
the
period, training period.
oh man. Probably the actually the yeah the most nightmarish one was one where I didn't get yelled at by my section commander. That's where I felt terrible. When I did something I screwed up, and this guy didn't lose his temper. That's where I felt fear.
Oh, right, okay, that's
Because
interesting.
that I yeah that's like he didn't go into full rage instantly. It was cold measured disappointment. It was like
Yeah.
it's like God turning around and giving you the "I'm very disappointed in you" speech. That's where I felt terror for the first time.
And sometimes silence can work a lot better
Oh
than
yes.
screaming. I remember we were on a room inspection, and my mate, this was in basic training, uh, uh, basic being the operative word because they just want to rip the civilian out of you and then build you up as
Yeah.
military. And my mate had been using my iron uh, before the room inspection, and all we heard was "buy your beds." I thought, oh, so my mate gave me this iron, still up, unplugged. I said, there you go, Joe. I thought, cheers, mate. So I shoved it in the top box quickly. He managed to get the ironing board away. Sergeant comes in, and they know what's been going on because they're listening. He just came in and he stood on my bed with his dirty boots, which was great. And then he opened my top box and got the iron, and all I heard was this dripping water. I was still facing the front, dripping water. He says, "Oh, Connor, what's this?" And I looked round, and I'm 18. I don't know what to say. So I just said innocently, "Water, Sergeant." And I've never been marched to jail so quickly. He went, "That's right, that's right, that's right." And yeah, I was running around in the nick, pokey drill for about 2 hours with a drill shell above my head. And,
Oh jeez.
and I hadn't even done it. So yeah, and
Oh.
so this silence, what did that do to you?
Oh, that basically that made sure I never made that same mistake ever again.
Oh wow.
It was um yeah, it was I he could have very easily charged me. In fact, he looking back on it, actually no, I think he went with the right course of action. It
That
just
was a good call by him, wasn't it? He was
yeah.
pretty cute cookie. Yeah.
Yeah, I could have very easily been charged with insecurity, um, but yeah, he decided no. And I think what influenced this guy to go down that route was that yeah, he recognized that I was there. I wanted to learn everything. I wanted to be the best at everything. I was I had the yeah, I was the most enthusiastic recruit.
Right. Okay.
um, lacked any common sense or any kind of actual practical ability, but in terms of heart and intent, it was like through the roof,
Good.
across the board. And he nicknamed he I didn't realize it until after the fact, but he nicknamed me Recruit Intense. he uh one time I was like, we're doing admin, making your beds and all sorts. And then one of the mates from another room comes in and he goes, "Yeah, just had a interview with our seco. He wants me to send in someone called Recruit Intense." And I thought that could be me. So I went, okay, I think that's me. So I went down there, went to the door, and he looks up, sees me, and then sort of nods in approval and yells down the hall, "Well done, Recruit Percival!"
And we're going to come on to it a bit later. I want you to uh, part this or put this in your head what we're talking about now, because later we'll be talking about how important the skills are when transitioning that you learn in the military. And I'd rather have. I mean, of course, you need people who can deliver the skill as well. But to start with, I'd rather have someone who was intense and wanted to learn because I can teach the skills. If you need to know security analyst or you need to learn about typing or anything, you can get that. You need someone who tips up and wants to learn in the first
Absolutely.
instance. So yeah, that was a good call by him. So you're a rifleman at this point, aren't you? Once you pass out.
Well, soldier. So the rifleman came with sort of initial employment training after
Ah, right.
recruit
Okay.
training.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
and
I stand corrected there because that's different with the
so
Australian.
trade train. So recruit training, and then you go to your specific trade.
Right. Okay. And how did that go?
Oh, total absolute mess. I I had for some reason I can't to this day I still can't figure out what because like when I went to recruit training, like the whole failure with not getting into ad for an officer training, that sort of not hit me for six.
Yeah.
It completely turned me upside down. And when I went to recruit training, I managed to get rid of a lot of that sort of anxiety, stress. I started to stop getting in my own way.
Right. Okay.
And then when I did my sort of Army Reserve version of Rifleman training, that those traits came rushing back. I got in my own. It's very enthusiastic still, but um, just I screwed up, and I would be so keen to learn from that mistake that I would make another mistake, and I would the sort of frustration and anger would snowball, and it was I basically I was you would look at me and go, this guy doesn't know anything about anything,
Yeah.
and so my rifleman training, yeah, it was sort of old habits came rushing back. I was not pleased with how I went on that,
Yeah.
and
So
and
what
but
did you do? What
I
did
knew
you do to
full.
change the outcome then? How did you
I
break
think
that?
I think the only at the time the only saving grace I had was the desire to actually find a solution. I had no idea what I needed to do, but I knew I had to look to find I knew I had to fix it up. So just that realization of this part of me is an absolute is getting in my way. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do about it at the moment, but I've got to look to find a way to fix this up.
So,
So it was the I suppose there was despite various flaws, there was the integrity to know that there was a part of me that was absolutely messed up and I needed to fix it, and also the with that desire was I suppose the what came was an intense willingness to persevere, to keep finding a way. No matter, I would still I would make mistake after mistake after
yeah,
mistake, and get very frustrated and angry. But with even though that would continue, there was always that desire of I've got to keep going.
excellent. Because success is a journey and failure isn't final.
Oh yes. In fact, to sort of, I think, like that period of where I went through recruit training and then the absolute mess I was during my rifleman training would probably be the best. Would I suppose be the best way to describe my army career in general. Was it was like a yo-yo. The successes were dizzying heights. The failures were depths to the absolute bottom.
Mm. And at the absolute bottom, because I I guess that well, failure happens to everyone, and you haven't failed until you give up, right? So failure happens through life, or we also call it shit happens. So and when it happens, and when it happened, what were you thinking when you were at your lowest?
Uh, at my lowest, it would have there was just that desire of I've got to I've got to find a way to keep going.
Yeah.
It was funnily enough, I don't know where this trait actually came from, but when I was at my lowest, I sort of the best way I can describe it is like like the counter ambush drill.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just a case of, you just turn into the fight and you just go, 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 go. You just
yeah,
go
yeah,
into autopilot in a way.
yeah,
You're not thinking, you are just firing and moving. You are just getting through that
yeah.
chaos.
Because
A
if you just
similar,
stand there, if you just stand there like a
yeah, you're
rabbit
dead.
in headlights, you're going to crash and burn, aren't you?
Yeah, and in a similar way, I had that trait when I got in sort of periods where I'd be at my absolute lowest. I'd sort of go into like a sort of like an autopilot thing. I would just keep going, just keep functioning in a
Mm,
way,
yeah.
uh, almost kind of like a zombie.
Mm,
I didn't really have much direction, or wasn't really thinking. I didn't really have any ideas on what to do or anything, but I just kept myself going and until I would manage to come to my senses
yeah.
and then sort of sit down, take stock of what's happened, and try and start figuring stuff out and start fixing things up.
And that's where the similarities come in with the leaving aside how we train differently, and you think our military's a bit more difficult. The fact is that it's intense at times, and you're always learning, and it puts you under a lot of pressure because at the end of the day, when the stuff hits the fan, you have to be able to react, and it's
Yep.
not like, oh, should I or shouldn't I? It's just you go, and that's what's instilled during the training process. So it's exactly the same in the British Army, you know, uh, and I like something that's always stuck in my mind as well is in times of peace we train for war, and in times of war we fight for peace, and being able to be at the top all the time, I find is really interesting. So you've been on lows and you've come through it and you recognize, well, probably in a phrase, the only way is up, right?
Yeah. In
So
what wasn't thinking that at the time, but looking back on it, yeah, that once you hit the low point, well, it's the yeah, you can only go up from here, or the other option is kind of permanent.
yeah, 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 exactly. So what's happening next when you train up as a rifleman and you've had your lows and highs and your triumphs and your tribulations? What's going on?
Yeah. Okay, so after the Rifleman training, I go to my Army Reserve unit. And fortunately, that would be sort of part-time. And fortunately, at that point, I started to pick myself up and sort of and start fixing up a lot of errors and a lot of weaknesses. Did that for close to 2 years, and at the time, I'm working full time in a retail shop. I started off in my father's retail business. Um, Realized that don't. I realized that doing business with family does not work for me. I if I ever find myself doing running a business someday, I'm keeping family well and truly away from it. Um, After that, though, started went tried another retail job selling mobile phones in a shopping center, and that was it was it was a good job. However, I came to realize that I am not cut out for retail, what,
Right.
what, whatsoever. Of course, in retail, there's that saying, the customer is always right. But I came across plenty of examples of
Except when they're wrong.
customers. Well, it wasn't that. It wasn't when a customer was wrong. What would always get me was you would get people who would take that philosophy and they would use it as an excuse
Right,
to
yeah,
be unreasonable and entitled.
right.
That's where I realized, nah, this is this isn't for me, because I would inevitably draw a line in the sand. And yeah, on one occasion, the whole store went quiet. as as I decided to draw a line with a customer who was being very unreasonable. Although in that job, in that job, I do have another. Here's where another situation of learning Italian actually actually worked out so well. So uh, I love this one. Um, so my training manager at this mobile phone store, very lovely woman. Very, and I mean very lovely, very like very charming, very approachable, and of course very good looking.
Right.
And I get this customer in one day whilst I'm, learning the ropes as a trainee, and this particular customer obviously looks like and sounds like he fancies himself as God's gift to women. Um,
Okay.
Fake tan, the whole lot. And as I'm selling this mobile phone, he's of course taking more interest in my training manager, and start doing all the paperwork to finalize the sale and that. And as I'm doing that, he starts talking to my manager a lot, and of course starts chatting her up, and starts starts saying that he knows Italian, starts saying a few phrases in Italian, and he thinks he's getting away with it because I look more like a Dalmatian than I do an Italian. So he thought he was he thought he was getting off scot-free. He's saying all these phrases in Italian, and each phrase in Italian is getting more and more sleazy. I'm just doing the paperwork, being diligent, and just taking it all in, just staying calm, and then do the paperwork. And then after this, just before I finished doing the phone, he says, doing the sale, he says one more phrase in Italian, and that was, I can't remember what it was, but it was the line in the sand moment, and it was okay, no, he must die. And I put on the English accent a little bit and gone, oh, so you've been to Italy, have you? And he goes like, yeah, mate, yeah, yeah. So what football team do you follow? And he goes, oh, mate, I go for Roma. And this is what I said in Italian, going, oh, davvero, tifo per Lazio. Oh, I go, oh, really? I follow Lazio. And he's sort of gone, oh, he was about to say another phrase in Italian, but then just before he can get the words out, the penny drops in this guy's mind of, I've understood every single word
Every,
you've just said to my training manager, pal, and I'm not kidding. The fake tan drained from his face.
wow. Well done. Hey, so that was where a bit of intelligence came in handy. And by the way, do people get fake tans in Australia, and how come? Because you've got the sun there.
Honestly, I don't know. It's just, it, yeah,
That that
it
that
does,
baffles me.
it doesn't make sense.
No.
It really doesn't make sense.
So you've discovered now you've got a lovely manager who probably helps you a lot with what you're doing, apart from being attractive. That the fact is that she's charming, she knows her job, she's probably good at sales. So you probably learn a lot there. What was it then that sort of made you think, right, not having this, don't like the sales job, I'm off?
Yeah, it was down the track. It was the I had another line in the sand moment where it was, I mentioned, I alluded to it before, I had a line in the sand moment where I had a customer who was being just completely unreasonable and exploiting the customer is always right mentality. And
No.
I lost my temper at this guy so much that the entire store went quiet. And that was I think I think I only just been in the military for a short period of time at that moment. I was very much a private, but with the volume of my voice and what I was saying to him, I could have easily passed for a sergeant major. So that was the moment I realized, you know what, need to find something else.
And when was this? Round about
This
2006, 7, or
2000 and would have been 2006. Yeah.
okay.
Because shortly after that, my transfer to the full-time army came through, and it was right, grab my stuff, I'm going.
Oh, so that was a great bit of coaching and mentoring from that sergeant who said, look, you got a cat, my words, you got a cat in hell's chance of getting in the military, mate. So go for territorial part-time first and get
Yep.
get to grips with your training. And so that's good. He really looked out for you. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, sorry, did I say did I say that guy was that guy was a sergeant? If
Oh
so,
no, you well,
I
what was it? You said he was in the
I was a
recruitment. Yeah.
yeah, as a captain. Sorry,
I was it a captain, right? Okay.
yeah, and it turns out this guy had a similar kind of path,
Right.
and
Okay.
he turned around and he goes, "Look, I think he when this guy confronted me about saying you've got a snowball's chance in hell of going of trying for ADFA again." I think he was that direct and that blunt. He wanted to sort of test, and
Yeah.
I think he was testing to see if I would beg. And
Yeah.
luckily I didn't. I sat there and gone, okay.
Good.
And just I figured you know I'm sitting there at the time going, all right, bad news, but don't beg. Don't beg.
Mm.
And yeah, he sort of sat back and he's gone, he sort of realized, okay, he's not gonna beg. Tell you what, how about you try the Army Reserve?
Yeah.
And that's and in fact, you know, when I didn't realize, I only remember this now. When I swore in and I raised my hand and swore allegiance to the Queen, he was the officer there at the time doing it. So it
Oh, so he was
was
the attesting
yeah,
officer. Yeah. Wow. That's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
So that was a great moment. Yeah. So so yeah, I finished up with the retail sort of attempted retail career in 2006, and I was you know transferring into the full-time army in 2007, January 2007. Um, major move. I transferred from Sydney from 43 RNSWR to 5th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, all the way up in Darwin, so nor Northern Territory, and in fact, because I transferred from directly from the Army Reserve, I turned up in Darwin on my own rather than with like a batch of new recruits straight out of infantry training. So I turn up there in you know in lovely tropical northern Australia, you know middle of the wet January, so it's like height of the or sort of you know intense part of the wet season. So new location, far away in a completely different climate, on my own. And of course, I turn up to 5 RAR and everyone's just, you know, I'm just like you know, it's like a lost pup. It's like, yeah, where do I go? And like people are just going, looking at me going, who are you? I was like, yeah, I transferred from reserves. I think I'm supposed to be here. It's like, no, I go over there. And then they'd say, no, you go over there. And then over there.
Right. All right. So yeah, I can understand the puppy reference. So when was it you got to grips with where you were supposed to be and when and how?
Yeah, well, that was, I suppose that would be a bit of a sort of a bit of a drawn out process actually. So right after, in fact, luckily, right after I transferred, and this was, and I dare say this was down to my training back in the reserves. My training warrant officer at the time, he'd heard that 5 RER were going to deploy to Iraq, so he got me when it came to my transfer, he got me transferred to 5th Battalion. So January 2007, I marched into 5 RER. Then shortly afterwards, training up to go to deploy to Iraq, and how I got on that deployment because I was the stereotypical new guy. You know, like even more of a new guy than all the new guys who had marched in a couple of weeks before. So I was like, you know, I might as well have just had red hair, just be put in the corner. And
By
there
the
was
way,
this.
for the purpose of the broadcast, red hair is a great color. Also comes in black and blonde and other colors are available.
It's there was this moment where I sort of you know I had like a setback that became an opportunity in a way. The platoon sergeant comes in one morning and he's like, he's just, you know, hating life. And he goes, all right, I've got this spot on this 2 week language course. Anyone here want to go learn Arabic? And I thought, oh, here's a chance. So I'm like, yeah, in the back of the room, like, yeah, wave my hand going, oh, Sarge, over here. Come on, behind the fat bastard. And so he's sort of looking around and he picks someone else deliberately. And, you
Oh,
know, so I was like you know, feeling pretty dejected after that. But then about a week after, where everyone who's going on deployment has gone on their training courses, And I'm with the guys who are going to be reserve platoon, and they start just handing stuff out for people to learn. And I get given some Iraqi Arabic language phrase books. I figure, right, I'm going to start learning this stuff. So I just like a monk, just started trying to learn every single phrase in this book. And they did a scenario sort of training session one day of and the officers there are saying, okay, try and learn, try and apply Arabic and whatnot. And it's like a situation of, okay, you've come across this village, and then eventually there's a terrorist that comes out and he's being aggressive, and the whole idea was try and speak Arabic.
Yeah, yeah,
And everyone going through it, yeah, they're trying, but they're not really taking it seriously. And then my turn comes up, and I figure, oh, I want this deployment. And so I go in there, and I'm taking it serious. Probably actually no, I'm taking it way too serious.
yeah.
And then the moment comes up where the sort of the terrorist sort of emerges, and he's acting all aggressive, and right away, rifle up, and I start barking at orders in Arabic to this guy. It's like in every, I yelled out every phrase of "get down" that I could remember, and even the guy playing the terrorist was surprised. Like he sort of stopped cold, and he's going, "Okay, okay, okay, dude, I'm getting down on the ground." Of course, all these officers sort of watching, going like sort of they're all like clipboards, and then they hear me start rattling off phrase after phrase, and they all just go, "What the?" And then after it's occurred, it's like there's like the general reaction of all the trainee supervisors was, "Who the hell are you?"
Right, good. So you get
And
recognized then.
yeah, and a couple of weeks after that, I'm put into an infantry platoon, um, and realized that I got into that platoon because I was good at learning Arabic, and so I made sure that I dedicated as much time as possible to keep on learning and learning and learning, and to the point where in Iraq, I eventually became one of the platoon commanders, one of the main go-to linguists for the platoon commander.
Wow. So you were on point then a lot of the time.
Yeah,
Well, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And how
So.
did you find that? Because as I've said, we never go into anything operationally sensitive because as soon as you say what country you've served in, we know the sort of stuff we've done. What
Gotcha.
was the most interesting situation that you came across where the language barrier was dropped?
Oh, okay.
Because of
Probably,
your
yeah,
knowledge of Arabic. So there was
yeah, yeah.
no language barrier.
Yeah. Sorry. Say that again. There's like the
Yeah, I'll say
phone
that
cut out
again,
a
right,
little
and read that back to you. So, what was the most interesting situation you experienced where your grasp of how to communicate in the local language came in useful? I've reframed that in a different
bit.
way.
Oh, right, right. Yep. Yeah. Well, of course, the terrain of the Middle East is tabletop. And we're this patrol we're out on, and we harbor up. We're in these big, huge Bushmaster vehicles. So I think Mastiffs would be the equivalent for
Yeah.
British Army. And as we're sort of harbored up as the boss has harbored up the vehicles, there's one of the guys on the radio who's looking at the window, sort of communicates, "Hey, we got a dude outside who's just this guy looks pissed." And it's like he looks this guy looks like he's about to kick off.
Right.
And the platoon commander turns to me and goes, "Prato," that's sort of what I was known as. Sorry. Uh, yeah, it's like in the Aussie Army, you're basically known as by a shortened version of your surname. If you
Yeah.
hear your first, there's like a meme that goes around of when you hear your first name when you hear someone call you by your first name in the army, you have that Obi-Wan Kenobi reaction of that's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Anyway, so this local guy is just he is livid, and he looks like he could practically be about to clack
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
And the boss turns around, he goes, "Prato, go out there, see what the hell's going on." And so I go outside, of course, gear on, rifle on, and no one was lying about this guy. He was absolutely just he was furious,
Mm.
absolutely just he could have knocked out Mike Tyson, this guy.
Right.
and I'm just sort of, I'm sort of list trying to understand as much as possible because he's just absolutely livid. So he's just like speaking at a million miles an hour per second. And he's sort of waving his arms about, saying, "Oh, you Muzane, Muzane, bad, bad." And I sort of start paying more attention to his body language rather than trying to figure
Yeah.
out what he's saying. And I see his arms waving around, and I'm sort of sort of following where he's pointing to, and then comes the realization of this guy's a farmer, and we've just parked in his field, and right away, right away, I've gone from fearful to extremely sympathetic because it's a case of it's like a case of damn it, we've just driven over this guy's crops.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I get on the radio, like, boss, look, it's not as bad as everyone thinks here, but we've screwed up. We've screwed up here. He's a farmer, and yeah, it's hard to tell, but we've driven on his crops.
Yeah.
And basically, that's I can't remember we found a way. I think we found a way to sort of make that one. I hope I can't remember sadly, but I sincerely hope we found a way to make that one right because um, one thing I've learned over time is do your utmost not to piss off a farmer.
Yeah, yeah, because it's not that great, and that's what we're failing on in this country at the minute in the UK.
Oh,
Yeah,
and Australia too,
yeah.
sadly.
So
It's
so you learned a lot about people's skills, and interestingly enough, to look at physiology, the actual body language, as well as the words that someone's saying. So what was when was it that you changed roles in the military? Because then you moved on to do something else, didn't you?
yeah. I transferred over to intelligence corps.
Yeah.
Um,
Which, by the way, before you go on, is that as big a contradiction in terms in the Australian army as it is in the British army, like intelligence?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, I reckon I could one up that very real stereo that very credible stereotype is everyone thinks of intelligence as they're all the secret squirrel and all sort which there's truth to that, but when it boils down what you are as an intelligence analyst, whether you're in the military or in the private sector, basically you are a high-tech version of a gypsy fortune teller. That is it. Okay. You just
Okay.
swap the crystal ball for a computer and the weird clothing with a suit. That's all that is really the only difference.
That's good. Yeah, I
Um,
like that.
and you probably your accuracy in predicting the future is probably on par with gypsy fortune tellers too.
Good. So how did you get on then? And how,
Okay.
by the way, what was the process transferring? Was it pretty easy? Did they do an IQ
No.
test or how did you get it?
Lots of tests. And in fact, where the sort of where the process began was after Iraq. Um, after that deployment, come back home and put my preferences in for further training. Of course, language courses at the top for me.
Yeah,
However, I did not get even my third preference for training courses. I got put on a promotion course right away, and at the time, I'd only been a full-time soldier for 12 months, and when I found out, I I, I had a chance to speak to the officer command OC officer commanding,
yeah, yeah.
and I said right there and then I thought I've got to say something. So I go, look, sir, respectfully, I've got no business being on this course. Okay, I haven't even been a 2IC yet. I'm barely competent in any specialty outside of a rifle platoon. I promise you, I will do my best. But chances are, I'm not going to be up to the job. I'm not ready. I'm not ready for this. He sort of took that under advisement, but I get put on the course, and day one, I realize, nah, I'm a bum on a seat. Well, I saw myself as just a
Yeah.
bum on a seat, and that didn't sit well with me. And so, first thing I said to my DS, who turned out to be later on turned out to be my platoon sergeant, I said to him, said, "Look, Sarge, respectfully, I've said this to the OC already, but I need to say this to you as well. Is look, I don't have any business being here. I'm not ready for this. I will do my utmost. I will not slack off. I will do my utmost in every part of this course. But I'm not at the I'm not ready for this yet. Um, and of course, lived up to that. I did my utmost throughout the whole course. There'd be elements where I was, barely passing. There was the odd when it came to presenting orders, I excelled on that one.
Yeah.
But when it came to the section attacks, I screwed up royally.
Right.
I had no idea what I was doing, and and a whole lot of bad habits came back.
Right.
And I did a retest on the section attack, and I screwed. It was even my retest was even worse than my first failure. Like to the point where I was so I just hadn't planned everything. I just couldn't see. I really had no idea what I was doing. I led my section into an ambush.
Right.
I'm not, like training ambush, but nonetheless, I was really, really filthy with myself about that. That I had screwed up so bad that, the worst scenario you could lead a section into happened,
Right.
and fail it. And the training sergeant, of course, this guy's given me a dressing down because I have screwed up so badly.
Mm.
And at this point, I have a line in the sand moment, and I turned around to him and I said I shouldn't even be on this course in the first place, and I lose it. And I start, and he turns around and sort of says, "Well, look, when we get back to battalion, we can do more training with you and we can fix it up." And at that point, I lost my temper even more because back in battalion, back in sort of the battalion lines, all that would really happen was that we would be used as cheap labor for the Q store.
Right.
And so I hear this and I take that as just a, as just a, just as something to say, just as something. And I turned around and said, "That's BS. You know full well that we're all just going to go back and be used as cheap labor for the Q store. Don't lie to me."
Yeah.
And he, of course, rightfully so, he does not take well to this. And he says, "Okay, that is it. Unload your weapon." And I go through unloading my weapon, but of course, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm pissed off, and I don't unload my weapon properly. And luckily, fortunately, blanks, unfortunately, made sure, probably the one thing I did get right was I made sure I, kept my barrel pointed in a safe direction. But nonetheless, instead of catch, fire, catch, safe, it's catch, bang, oh.
Yeah.
So
So it was
with
an
blanks,
ND then, negligent
yeah,
discharge. Yeah. Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And and then of course after I figure, okay, don't care if you shouldn't be here or not. Just whatever happens next, you nod your head, you say yes sir, no sir, three bags full sir, and you take whatever comes. And fortunately, I had at least that clarity to not try and make excuses. I sort of the I went back to battalion essentially having my name being Mud. However, and when it came to getting charged, I had no, I was going to plead guilty. I said to my defending officer, I said, look, Sarge, just to be clear, I'm pleading guilty, okay? Because look, even though I said, I said, I was trying to remember the order. I said, I was trained on that weapon. I know how to use that weapon properly. I didn't use that weapon properly, so I'm pleading guilty, and I'll take whatever punishment I screwed up there.
Mm.
What I do also want to mention, though, is that before all this began, I said full well that I will do my utmost, but I am not yet ready for this. So but I emphasized again. It was like, by end of the day, I'm guilty. I will plead guilty because that's an error I should not have made at all. And uh, basically, for some reason, everything sort of fizzled away. But at that moment, when I sort of calmed down and sort of had took my sort of had a chance to sort of take a good hard look at myself, I figured, look, I love being in the army. I want to be a rifleman and be a, you know, and hopefully have another crack at officer training. But no matter how hard I try, I'm not up for this. Okay.
Mm. Yeah.
I've got to figure something out. And as I was trying to figure something out, saw a literal ad in the paper ad in the army paper for intelligence corps, and figured, how about I try this? It's still army. I'm still doing, you know, it's not a combat corps, but it's a combat support corps. So I could give that I could give that a try, because I, you know, one thing that the sergeant, in fact, who had given me the dressing down when I failed my retest, he did mention. He said, "Look, you're pissed off, and yeah, you're not very good at was when it came to the orders assessment. The way you delivered orders was brilliant." So I figured, well, getting up and standing in front of people and speak, well, that's basically what intelligence does. So I'll give that a crack. And you know, started applying. Had quite a few setbacks along the way, in terms of assessments. And although there was a few humorous moments, especially when it came to my background check. For you know, lack of a better term, when it came to my background check, it's there was a they were very curious as to why I, before I joined the army, I'd been to so many countries overseas, and it was the they it was quite funny to explain to them that my parents had sent my sister and I to England quite a lot, because they're sort of there going, oh, is this guy a risk? But then they realize, oh no, this guy just had a really good childhood.
Right. So, wow. So that there again, like as low as it goes, and that's about dealing with failure, and then looking at what can you do to change, to reset the sail, I suppose, to change the direction, to make sure you still get to the end destination and where you want
Yep.
to be. So,
You couldn't have put
what
it better there, actually.
sorry?
You what you just mentioned there is actually was perfectly said.
Oh, thank
Because
you.
I mean, just sort of to back it up with to back that part up with, when I went through my intel training, you know, had a whole lot of had a whole lot of experience. And when I graduated from intelligence corps, when I graduated from the graduated into the intelligence corps, sorry, I remember standing on the parade ground that day and sort of realizing that, you know, I had actually the end state the end state I was looking for when I was trying to become an infantry officer. I'd actually achieved it. That didn't work, but I found what I was looking for in joining the intelligence corps as a
Yeah,
soldier. So yeah, I mean, yeah, that moment on the parade ground, um, that moment on the parade ground at the Intel Training Center was just like I mentioned before about closing a chapter.
yeah,
You know, that because I'd found what I was looking for another way, I was able to close sort of, yeah, in a way, close a chapter on sort of
yeah,
the how I would get in my own way a lot.
yeah.
All those years of getting in my own way, I managed to, I suppose, close it off and say, yep, that happened. I fixed it. It's
And,
done.
and it sounds like you had at various stages in your career, because I know when I've had good men and women under my command, and then maybe not so good in output, but I know that just disciplining someone for discipline's sake doesn't always work. It's about measuring the outcome and sometimes cutting them a little bit of slack because you know they're doing the best. If someone's an out and out lazy son of a gun, then
Hmm.
discipline them and maybe, yeah, get rid, I suppose. But if you've got a bloke or a girl who's doing their absolute best, I'd rather have a load of them and maybe cut them slack every now and again, so long as their actions don't put anyone's life in danger. Then, and I think that that happened with you on two very pivotal moments in your career, which then helped you move on and get even better results. Does that make sense?
Yes. In fact, the like that like graduating into an intelligence, sadly, that moment, that success was very short-lived. But that like when I graduated from intelligence corps, that first moment of having all those years of making silly errors and compounding them by getting my own way, with getting into intelligence corps, I was able to sort of that was a moment where I could sort of go, yeah, I found what I've found and found what I'm looking for, and I finally made it happen. Not infantry officer,
Yeah,
but this is in fact I've possibly found something even better
yeah.
in for my circumstances.
So, and the destination was being a success in the military, which you achieved, and at a younger age, you thought it was being an officer, and actually it turned out that it wasn't.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it was luckily I had I think it was interesting. I just remembered now that you mentioned how that one thing that's good about with military training, sort of having a military mindset, is that you don't give up. Is that you
Mm,
have that never quit mindset. Um, I one thing I found, I reckon, I suppose it's a life lesson, in a way, is being able to tell when you're not quitting, or being able to tell the difference between not quitting and banging your head against a brick wall.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
Um,
important.
that's and I think that was a sort of the lesson that was sort of the lesson learned I had there was, yeah, you've persevered, you've tried, you've gone back to you've persevered, you've tried, persevered. You, Now you've got to a stage of, ugh, no, you could persevere, but from this point onwards,
Yeah,
you're banging your head against a brick wall.
yeah.
Okay, try something else. And luckily, was able to do that.
Good. And what were your most memorable times in the intelligence unit?
Oh, ooh.
What? I mean, without disclosing anything
Oh,
too
yeah.
much.
That No, no, it's not it's not keeping the sensitive stuff. Yeah, yeah, keeping the sensitive stuff sensitive.
Yeah,
That's the easy part. Yeah, not
yeah,
sort of maintaining secrecy requirements. That's the easy part. Um, Probably the one of the best moments I had was actually before I sort of officially joined. I was doing between that incident of failing that promotion course and getting new intel, I got the opportunity to do sort of on the job training. So still in the infantry, but learning basic intelligence work. And there was a
right.
I had an opportunity to deploy to East Timor very briefly to cover for a guy who had to come home. And I'm a private working in the battalion HQ on this one, and monitoring logging reports, just very, very benign sort of stuff. And part of my job was to also draft a report for the morning intelligence brief that the CO would read. I'd write these things up, very benign, sort of, in terms of any kind of significance. And a lot of the time, the intelligence officer supervising me, there'd be a whole lot of changes. But there was one morning, I come into the office, I have a look at what the reports have gone out, and I have a look at the morning intel report, and the morning intel report is verbatim what I wrote the night before. And I'm reading this, and again, very benign, insignificant in terms of what the issue was. But I'm looking at this report and it's unchanged from what I wrote the night before. The intel officer comes in and says, "Oh, hey, I see you're looking at what you wrote up the night before." And yes, ma'am. And sorry, and this lady, she's turned around, she's gone, "What you wrote there is absolutely spot on." And so much so that I've actually gone, before that went out, I went and personally briefed the CO on this. And I'm sort of sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I'm a private and I've just written something that's influenced the thinking of a guy
Right.
who's several pay grades above me. So there was like, of course, like a head goes. So that was the first sort of, that was like the aha moment of yep, I'm definitely on the right track. And I think after that was, oh boy, where would it? probably one of the, in fact, probably the second one among the other great moments I had in intelligence corps was again. I deployed again to East Timor, doing another very sort of big scheme of things, very benign job,
Yeah.
but dedicated myself to just being an absolute master of it. And like I figured, this is an opportunity not to waste, so make the most of it. And I made sure that I made the most of it. And this was occurring after in the aftermath of a really low point. And I suppose we might be able to get to that one in a bit, but I suppose a bit of a spoiler alert here, but what this deployment was a chance to get back on the horse. And I not only did that very well, but I went back to Australia with a report from a very senior officer who was willing to put it in writing of, if I deploy overseas again, I want this man on my team. So,
Wow.
I mean, you know, that was absolutely
That's a
that
good
was
commendation. That.
I can't, yeah, I can't describe it, but
Yeah.
just that was that was amazing. That was probably, off the top of my head, that would probably be the, if not the greatest, among the greatest.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. So, unless there's anything you want to add that you think is specifically important, what point did you start thinking, what's beyond the military?
Yep. There are probably two aspects to it. Inadvertently, I sort of I didn't sort of first part of it was actually, I think I sort of stumbled across by accident when when I got to transfer to the full-time army, into the infantry. Before I got on the plane to Darwin, before that happened, I sort of took a moment to sort of take a good hard look in the mirror and sort of realize, okay, here's what I'm about to do. I've got to have, first of all, I've got to have have the proverbial escape plan. Like, I want to use my time in the military to, you know, take the guy I am now and make sure that when I leave the military, what comes out is so much better. So I was like doing university and university study throughout my army career, but I figured, right, I've got to make a decision. Like, this is when I was about 21, I think. I figured I've got to make a decision of, at the age of 30, I need to sit down, take a good hard look. If if I'm if I'm not a sergeant, or got on the road to being a sergeant, I need to get out, because I don't want to be the sort of guy. I'd come across plenty of examples of guys who had sort of used the army as just a paycheck,
Yeah.
uh, and uh, and they'd spent their lives in the army. That they were call them lifers. Spent all their youth in the army, hadn't used the time, and then when they hit 40, they sort of have like a hit the wall moment where they don't want to be in the army anymore, but they haven't used their time in the military to better themselves, so
Yeah.
they can't really get out. And those particular, no matter what rank they are, those particular people in the military, I really don't like them.
Right. Okay.
I don't like those types. They're I
They're
can't
not
think of another term
productive.
apart from,
They're not productive.
yeah, they're in yeah. Anyway, so and the other aspect was, I had a chance to deploy again at the time. So I was about 20. I was 29. Had a chance to deploy again, and it was going to be another a deployment where I get to achieve was it, was it was per professional redemption,
Right.
in a way. Like, that's because there was a few years beforehand, just after I got into intelligence corps, I got deployed overseas. It went horrible. It
Right.
went abs This is 2010. I got deployed overseas. It went really bad, really quickly,
So
in
that was at the
terms of,
beginning of your time with intelligence, wasn't it? Yeah.
yeah. um I
So
suppose a
this was your
bit.
chance to redeem yourself then.
Yeah. So, I'd start doing all the training, and when it was occurring, So this was in the wake of the big success I had with East Timor with
Yeah.
that report. And because of what had happened with the first time round, my chain of command was actually quite reluctant to give me a crack at it because of what happened the first time round was so bad.
Yeah.
It was a case of do we want if we give them a crack at that, we might it might just we might have history repeating itself.
Yeah.
Anyway, so at first I get put in a reserve platoon, and start doing all the work, start training up, and I know the whole time I am being watched like a hawk by my off. There was a sergeant. There was a sergeant there who I would sort of best describe as in terms of intelligence corps, the soldier's soldier. I mean,
Right.
this guy. I mean, this guy was the sort of intel soldier that all intel soldiers want to be.
Yeah.
Um, he's a redhead too, so if he's listening, my apologies about the redhead remark earlier. But great, like just like when it came to wisdom or anything from this guy, I hung on every word I would hang on every word he has to say. Just the guy's a fountain of knowledge.
Yeah.
I've got him watching me very, very closely. I know there's other supervisors watching my performance very closely. And throughout the whole time, they decide, get pulled in for another chat, and my chain of command turns around to me and says, "Look, you're doing very, very well so far, but I want to make it clear that we're looking for other people. In fact, I've put a call out to the entire army to see if anyone wants to put their hand up for this job. If anyone does, sorry, Matt, too bad, so sad. Okay, I'm cool with that." That was sort of the very early stages of the training. I keep on doing the training through the reserve platoon. No one across the army puts their hand up for this deployment, so it's a case of right, Matt, you're up. Uh, so start
No,
do
no
train.
pressure then.
Yeah, no, no pressure. But managed to perform very, very well.
Good.
Yeah, but sadly, week one of pre-deployment leave, I find out that a general in an office far, far away decides, no, he's not going. Pick someone else. Don't care who, pick someone else. He's not going. I want a sergeant, not a corporal. And so I get told on, week one of pre-deployment leave, yeah, Matt, sorry, dude, you're not going, man. It's been kiboshed. Um, Now that was certainly very, very difficult news to take.
Mm.
However, what was very comforting was that my chain of command fought like hell to stop it from happening. Like they didn't just turn my chain of command just didn't just turn around and take it. They turned around to this general in an office far, far away and said, "Sir, no, he's our guy. He's the man for the job." But eventually, but if it's like it all came
Yeah.
down to scissor to what. It's the phrase in Australia is scissors paper rank.
Yeah.
It came down to that. And also, actually, would you believe it? During this time as well, I'd been doing I'd started Muay Thai kickboxing a few years beforehand, and that was proving to be very good in terms
Yeah.
of just for me to learn. So I was able to finally learn self-control.
Yeah.
And on the weekend before I got told the bad news, I had a Muay Thai grading.
Rating. Yeah.
Now this this gym I was training at is run by an ex-infantry guy, and so him and all the instructors are just they know what they're doing. And I'm doing this one particular grading where it's a massive jump. It's a jump from the sort of the top of the junior grades to the bottom of the senior grades. This is in Townsville in the wet season. So it's just hot as hell. I'm going through this grading, and this is it went for about an hour and a half. By the 60-minute mark, I'm already going down with heat exhaustion, and that's before we get to the 8 rounds of full contact sparring. And all the guys I've got to spar against, they're all the instructors. And it's basically they're all fresh, and I'm physically on death's door, and I'm just getting my ass kicked. However, about three-quarters of the way through that part of the grading, I start to have a lot of react. I started to have a lot of reactions I would used to have when things got overwhelming. However, just by sheer luck, I managed to find a way to actually stop it from happening. And just that moment, or just that couple of seconds, I managed to, finally solve a problem I'd had for close to a decade at the time. So that happens on the
What a
weekend.
breakthrough that must have been.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, the you wouldn't have picked it though. Though I had a lot of scars. I think the top left of my eye was cut open. I had black. I mean, I had my head completely bald and definitely had a few black eyes. I basically looked like a bald Alice Cooper. And so the funny part of getting the bad news on this one is that so I'd just done that grading, and I get called into the base. I go into the headquarters building, and of course I'm limping up to the I'm limping towards the office, with a very with a very sore leg, bruises all over me, one black eyes, a cut above, a cut above there. So they all thought my chain of command thought I'd found out and had been out in the town drinking and fighting. And they were ab the port the this the I genuinely felt sorry for my chain of command on this one, was that they thought I'd found out and I'd just gone absolutely haywire. But then I explained to him, I was like, no, I've just done a Muay Thai grading. This I passed.
Thankfully, this is what you
Yeah.
get when you pass. You want to see what you get when you fail.
And so there's that moment of, oh, okay, cool. Matt, I have some bad news.
Right,
So then that's where I got told. But because I'd managed to have that moment during that Muay Thai grading of confronting a major issue I'd had for quite some time, when the bad news got delivered this time around, it didn't floor me.
right.
Like in previous years, it would have just knocked me for six. This
Mm.
time round, it was okay, all right.
So
Um,
that's about finding your way with dealing with failure and acceptance, isn't it? Rather than
yeah,
letting it eat you up and become a term you used before, frustrated and angry.
yeah. Yeah. So I was able to take it in my stride. It was either that or I was just still in so much pain to actually take it all in.
So
Um,
that was the moment where you thought, I'm going to have my bedding in, was it? Or
not right away. Not right
right,
away, but it was from that moment where I had that trait of, like, it didn't floor me, but I had that trait of sort of going into like a sort of function, being functioning again,
yeah,
just to keep on going. And then when I sort of came to and sort of sat down, took a good hard look at myself, tried to sort of pick myself up and keep on going and find other ways to succeed in the army, but nothing was things just went from bad to worse career wise.
yeah,
About 6 months after, this would have been so mid-January 2014. I realized, nah, this is the sort of banging my head. I'm at the stage now where it's not persevering anymore. It's banging my head against a brick
yeah,
wall. It's time to go. And then sort of realize, wait a minute, yeah, this is I'm 30, so this is actually the moment I promised myself
yeah,
to take a good hard look and figure out what I'm going to do. So it was a case of, well, time to put my discharge in and see what else I can do. And I did have some difficulties in discharging. There was an officer who wanted me kicked out. Luckily, with all the goodwill I'd built up over the years in the army, a lot of people again came to my defense on that one and said, "Nah, just let this guy discharge. Just let him discharge." And the intelligence officer of the brigade at the time said, "Look, Matt, yeah, completely get why you're discharging. Um, look, it's not good the circumstances aren't good, but look, you've definitely got the potential to have a great intel career outside the army." And did so. I mean, when I discharged, it was a hell of an adjustment period. Moved back down to Sydney, back on my mum and dad's couch. but opportunity came up in Perth on the opposite side of the country to work as an intelligence analyst at Australia's biggest prison. Um,
Wow.
and just yeah, that would have been 3 months after I'd officially discharged from the army. So that came up, and it was grab my bag again and go and do and go and be an intel analyst in a prison.
And how long did that, what year was that and how long did that last for?
That was 2015.
Yeah,
Was when I started there. I was there for about there for about 3.5 years.
cool.
And oddly enough, I did more. I applied my army intel training. Sorry, pardon me.
Okay, it's all right.
Uh, I applied my army intel training way more in 3.5 years at Australia's biggest prison than, than I did in the army.
Right. So that's interesting how those skills came in handy
Absolutely.
for you. So what was it then? Because it sounds like you got a good grounding and how to utilize the skills you learned in the military to civilian street, although it's a form of public service, I suppose, being the prison service. What was it then that brought you about to say time to move on?
Things just got things just basically working conditions got more and more difficult. In fact, with working at the particular prison I was at, it was actually so the land's government owned, but the prison was run privately. It was a Serco contract.
Yeah.
Um, and sadly, despite the fact, I mean, at I mean, Serco's got one very bad and a bad reputation that they have earned for
Mm,
various reasons. At the Acacia prison though, that place was run like a well-oiled. They ran that place like a well-oiled machine.
yeah.
And very often with half the resources that the public sector would get. But it got to a stage where even when I turned up, the prison would sort of be used as a bit of a dumping ground for the prisoners that the public sector didn't want. But
Mm,
over time, it got worse. That sort of hostile treatment from the public sector got worse and worse. And it got to a stage where it was a matter of I've gone. It's things aren't getting better. I've got to. It's time to go.
yeah. And what's interesting is during our conversation, because we're coming to the end of a really interesting conversation, and thank you for your time. What and how important do you think having a good coach or mentor, someone you can just lean on when you need it, is?
It really does make a difference. In fact, you just reminded me of like during my time working at Acacia Prison, I got I was sort of keep in touch with guys I'd worked with, and I reached out, got in touch again at the time with another sergeant who another sergeant who like the other guy I was mentioning before, he was also it was also a fountain of knowledge, although very very eccentric. The guy has a character and a half, and he got into sort of sort of life coaching business after the army, and I reached out to him. And got talking, and he sort of would provide advice from time to time, and during that time as well, again, I was still doing martial arts, and I actually had another major grading occur for Muay Thai during this time in Perth. And first time round, sadly, I was just not up. I was just not at the level. I failed it, but I walked into that grading going, don't quit, don't quit. And, didn't quit, but eventually got told, nah, you're not making the grade, sit down. And I was like, okay, cool. And, I walked away at that moment, I walked away from that time thinking, okay, yeah, didn't make the grade today, but I'm going to the very next one. And not only am I passing, I am going to pass flying colors. And this sergeant I was speaking to with at the time, he was really helpful in really setting that mentality in stone. Um, he was almost too effective. It was sort of he would mention acronyms like fear is just an acronym for face everything and rise.
Yeah.
and
I like that. I like that. I'm going to
I
use that. Yeah.
oh, I took that. I took that to heart way too much. I brought it to borderline arrogance, where I went back to. Luckily, I didn't say anything at the time. When I went back for this retest for this Muay Thai grading, because I had trained up so much and I'd been speaking to this old friend a lot. The mentality I went in there the second time round. I was like so set for success. I almost blurted out when I entered the room. I almost blurted out, "Is this are these all the people you brought?" And I reckon that's probably the best decision I ever made, because keeping my mouth shut on that one, because what came next was an hour and a half of pure hell. But like I promised myself, I'd not only passed the grading on that time, I actually flew through it like just like you wouldn't believe, to the point where when it came to full contact sparring, they actually threw a professional MMA fighter um, in the mix. I don't remember much of that. I don't remember any part of that round. To be honest with you, but a chat I had with him afterwards, he mentioned that I had one hell of a good left hook. I honestly don't remember getting a single hit on him, but I do remember being hit several times.
So thank you. Well, we're coming to the end now, and I'd just like to reflect on what you've said and ask your opinion on what's one tip that you would give to a veteran who's maybe facing a bit of a challenge, or is doing successful, wants to get better, or maybe just someone who's in business and wants to know how to get over challenges. What would you give them as a best tip?
Uh, that there's no probably that there's probably 2 points that are running equal first on that one. The practical one would be martial arts. That funnily enough, just doing martial arts is a great way for just it's practical stoicism is
Mm,
probably the best way is learning practical stoicism is the best way I could put it. Probably the other thing that comes to mind would be um, from experience. Like Calvin Coolidge said, nothing can take the place of perseverance, but also have that be able to sort of figure out when you're persevering and when you're banging your head against a brick wall
yeah,
is probably
good.
the what I would say there.
Thank you. And another one is, how transferable do you think the skills are in the military to civilian street?
Completely, 100%. I mean, okay, we don't get to use guns and throw bombs anymore. But everything I've learned in the military. I mean, I've always been very conscientious, but service in the military, if you use your time to better yourself, like with the job you do, or you take the time to sort of or take the opportunity to do things outside working hours like study and whatnot, you can really you still, even to this day, even though it is difficult, it can be very difficult getting out.
Fantastic.
Um, everything you learn in the military, all the good stuff you learn in the military is ideal for setting yourself up for success. I mean, first of all, getting into the military, I would point out, I think it was Tim Kennedy, a guy in the US, pointed out, was that getting into the military these days is harder than getting into university. So, if you've been in the military first up, you've got that going for you. And there's another point as well, is that the conscientiousness that you learn from your time there is that when it all boils down, one thing about veterans is that they want to work and they always turn up on time.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I guess we all have that mentality of, if we're not 5 minutes early, we're late. In fact, if we get there 4 minutes beforehand, we're starting to twitch.
Yeah, yeah. That's something I've drilled into my sons as well. So what does the future hold for you now, Matt?
At the moment, yeah, I'm certainly at a crossroads again. Sadly, I don't think I'll be able to head back to Australia anytime soon.
Of
Well, I
course,
wouldn't
because
be able
you're
to
in the
move back,
UK,
sorry.
aren't you? You're in the UK
Yeah,
at the minute. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, so not in what sort of a permanent move back to Australia isn't really on the cards at the moment. However, I am actually in the process of packing up again, and opportunities come up in the Middle East.
Wow.
So yeah, in about a month and a half's time, I'm gonna be moving again, and it's the opportunity looks like it's not just a chance to sort of do the sort of work I do, like as an intelligence analyst, but there's a chance to have an opportunity to get into start actually being a leader.
That's fantastic. And I know you make a great leader with your values and experience. So that's great. So you have a briefcase will travel. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to?
Uh yeah, well there's my LinkedIn profile,
Yeah,
Matt Pratten.
yeah.
And I think was it the handle I've got on there is at OzInt Analyst. So that's OzInt is OZINT Analyst, ANALYST, or all one word.
Thank you. That's brilliant. Well, thank you very much for your service. Thank you for your time. It's been
Ah,
absolutely brilliant.
it's great chatting with you. Great chatting with you, Joe. I've had a great time, mate. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, and remember, if you want to get more information, loads of resources, and in fact, listen to the podcasts from the past, visit joeteams.com. That's JOETEAMS.com, joeteams.com, to get loads of information. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day. Thank you. JoeTeams.com is a resource I have created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoeTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoeTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's joeteams.com, JOETEAMS, joeteams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.